there are so many now since the 2000. Actually, starting in 1980s, but this theory becomes very, very widely discussed, yeah, in among communication specialists, yeah, since 2000, yeah, basically. Number one is this theory believe that the sender, it is not dominant anymore, yeah. And the second is receiver can also send a message, yeah, yeah. Receiver can also send a message, yeah. And also the message is determined by individual and emotion, yeah, of the people. That's why it is important that the receiver is important here. And then the last one, there will be interactivity in the process of communication. But everybody will be considered, will be talking to about something to others according to the personal understanding. Yeah, this is very important for transdisciplinary approach. Okay, later on. Okay, we're still talking about the field of new media. Okay, next, please. We can see that there are websites, yeah, and online websites. And also, of course, we know there are YouTubes, streaming, there are social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and many other online medium. Yeah. And the last one, this not yet now, but hologram in the future will be very, very influential. Probably, I believe that the next development of this communication now is hologram, where people can interact in fact, like physically, anytime, anywhere. You can just bring someone that you would like to talk to without the permission of the husband, the permission of the wife, the permission of brothers, sisters, etc. The parents. You can just bring, people that you would like, and then you can also modify. You can also manipulate this hologram. This is gonna be very, very interesting. Yet will be also a little bit dangerous for our Islamic values and other religious values, I think. Yeah. Okay, next time we would like to talk more widely about this hologram, of course. Okay, I would like to compare the next one about these models of disciplinary. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah. Number one is monodisciplinary approach. This has been quite long time ago, yeah, that we see discipline according to individual aspect. Yeah. Remember, for example, UIN, yeah, EIEN, Institute of Islamic Studies. We only study one element, for example. Yeah. And then it came multidisciplinary approach. But this multidisciplinary approach do not really interact. Yeah. And then we create, for example, some faculties, but we don't interact with these faculties. We study according to our own tendencies. There is no link between the others. Although we also have the so-called MKDU, yeah, mata kuliah dasar umum, yeah, which is general basic studies subjects. And then later on, it came interdisciplinary approach. These approaches, these disciplines already interact to each other, and this is the beginning of establishment of a university making Institute of Islamic Studies, yeah, EIN, become university where interdisciplinary approach is very much emphasized. Yeah, for example, communication and dakwah, usuluddin and philosophy, sharia and hukum, humanity and adab, and of course, uh, this one tarbiyah, yeah, and education. This is what we call interdisciplinary approach. But now what we are talking about is actually transdisciplinary approach, where the colors of all disciplines can be really studied at the same time with different teachers, different group, different sources, and then different references. To me, this is now very important that we can return to the tradition of Ibnu Sina, Al-Farabi, Al-Kindi, Al-Qurtubi, Ibnu Bajjah, etc., etc., etc. These people actually the example of transdisciplinary approach in the past. Okay, next. Okay, next, please. And then now, what is this transdisciplinary in this case? Transdisciplinarity concerns are indicated by the prefix trans, which is at the same time across disciplines and inside different disciplines and beyond all disciplines. Its goal is the understanding of the present world. One of its imperatives is the unity of knowledge. This is according to DQ Lesku. Okay, next, please. So further, what is this transdisciplinary approach? Number one is the usage of various disciplines, yeah, in solving many problems and penetrate the borders of monodiscipline. The second is the omittance of the boundary, yeah, of different disciplines, yeah. And then the third one is the meeting, yeah, of pure sciences, natural sciences, social sciences, religious sciences, and humanities, etc., etc. This is exactly what we are now going to create, in particular in UIN Jakarta now. We emphasize the so-called the integration of science, religious studies, and other studies in one study program, for example. And of course, this is based on a creative imagination. Someone or teachers, students should always be creative to imagine. This is the highest level of thinking. Yeah. And of course, eventually will create the so-called new synthesis and new science, new discipline, new information, etc., etc. And next one, what are the content of new media? These are the problematic, as I mentioned earlier. Next, please. Fake news, hoax, bullying, pornography, porno action, black campaign, and also hate speech. These are the problems that we need to determine according to actually the values, according to the ethics, the moral aspects that we are holding each of us. Okay, the next one is the users of media actually related to four aspects. Number one is the text itself. Number two is the community, where a person or people actually growing, and the authority that control he or she, himself or themselves. And of course, the last one is, as I mentioned, is active reception model. So basically, all this can be actually understood if the receiver, if the person is really active, not passive. If you are passive, you cannot create actually information. Okay, model transdisciplinary new media approach that we can see there are 6 here, that we can see the strengthening of religious literacy, and also strengthening the political literacy, and also strengthening media technology literacy, and also social literacy, and of course cultural literacy. This is the good point of this transdisciplinary using new media. Okay, how can we really make mainstream, how to mainstream this new media? There are 4 elements. Next, please, is number 1, cooperation between nations. Yeah, cooperation between social institutions and of course influencers, which is opinion leaders within the society. Number 2 is the cooperation between social institutions with the state. Yeah. Number 3 is the strengthening of community. And number 4 is, again, this is the strengthening or empowering of self, particularly if you can check in my work in 2004. So this basically the last slide of my presentation, and thank you very much. I deliver within 24 minutes. Sorry for 4 minutes over. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm ready to take some questions. Okay, wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So thank you very much for the meaningful and insightful material, the presentation today about the media in post-truth, a transdisciplinary approach. So now we are going to move on to the next presenter first, and after that we are going to have question and answer session. But again, if you have the questions already, please write it on the chat box. Okay. So now we have here Professor Etin Anwar, Professor Dr. Etin Anwar. She's from Hobart and William Smith Colleges, America, United States. She is also the founder of Reducates. Is it like an online platform for webinar and career development that promotes long life learning for just humanity? She finished her PhD from Binghamton University, New York, and then she also finished her MA degree in McGill University, Canada, and then her BA bachelor degree in UIN Bandung. She also was a resident fellow in the Center for Theological Inquiry in New Jersey. Wow. And then he got a lot of books and also paper published. So again, Professor Dr. Etin Anwar is also one of the famous presenters, one of the famous figures. So if you can like find or write her name on Google, and then you will find a lot of work, same as the previous presenter that I mentioned. So without further ado, I think I let Professor Dr. Etin Anwar to give her presentation. Time is yours.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good evening. Today I'm going to talk about defining knowledge. What do we mean by Islamic knowledge? How do we produce Islamic knowledge? And how do we approach the production of Islamic knowledge using a transdisciplinary approach? Before I talk further about my presentation, I would like to thank Ibu Dewi for giving me the opportunity to talk tonight, and also to Kakanda Andi Faisal Bakti. Apa kabar, Kak?
Baik Dinda.
How are you, Abang? And also to Professor Gamal Abdul Nasir Zakaria. I'm honored to be at the same panel with Kakanda, whom I respect very, very much. I would like also thank everyone who is coming tonight to be part of this conversation. I'm going to share with you my PowerPoint presentation, and then we will go from there. Are you able to see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it a presenter page or which page are you seeing?
The white and the blue.
Okay. I'm going to start by sharing the title of the talk. When I received the invitation, and I'm trying very, very hard to think about what is being asked. Let me change to one second. All right. I'm trying very, very hard to think about what is being asked. Secondly, how do we talk about a transdisciplinary approach in the context of UIN, in the context of EIN? Here are the questions. I like to throw some questions to all of you, and you could think along while I'm explaining. I'm sure that you have answers to my questions. I may not have the answers to my question. So I'm gonna just throw all the questions, and we could think along the way as I explain to you what I'm getting at. When we think about the Islamic knowledge, we really have to ask ourselves, what do we mean by Islamic knowledge? Are we talking about any subjects taught at, let's say, the State Institute of Islamic Studies in Kendari, or are we talking about something else? I also would like you to think about the contemporary challenges in which we produce knowledge. How do we produce knowledge? And then how do we approach challenges using a transdisciplinary approach? At the end, I would like you to rethink about your definition of Islamic knowledge. I'm going to use Ahmed in his book, What is Islam, as a framework to talk about Islamic knowledge. I'm going to start with some ideas in which I personally think they are very, very important. How we produce knowledge, our knowledge production is situated within the contemporary challenges. Whatever approach you are coming into, in my opinion, we are responding to the current challenges. And I've identified a few challenges that we could think about, although there are more challenges that I'm going to identify. And then I'm going to use a transdisciplinary approach to look at the challenge, one of the challenges, because there are so many of them. If you are doing research, any kind of research nowadays, we can look at COVID-19. When we think about COVID-19, at the very least, we are thinking about policy, innovation, and impact. In thinking about COVID-19, I would like you to use your discipline, to use your major, to use your area as an approach to COVID-19, and think along how your approach is going to be useful in solving COVID-19, how your approach is going to be useful in looking at the changing in Islam, for instance, in looking at the changing in society, in the changing in authority, and even the changing in post-truth in social media, in YouTube, and how fake news sometimes take over the real news. Another big challenge that is facing us right now is the climate change. Again, when we think about the climate change, how is your discipline going to be useful? How is your major going to be useful? How is your area of research is going to be useful? With climate change, we can use religious studies by looking at how religion responds to the climate change. We could use sociology, how people's behavior respond to climate change. We could use environmental studies. By looking at how nature changes, how the environment changes. We could also look at the issue of climate change using biology, how our landscape has changed, how our forest has changed, and also how our soil has changed, how the biodiversity has changed. And then we may be using marine biology to look at climate change, how we throw things into the sea, and it impact our habitat in the sea. We could also think about green energy. How do we solve the climate change by looking at the importance of green energy? We could also look at geography, how our landscape has changed. We have flood, we have disease associated with climate change. When we have big rain, we cannot handle it. So it is creating a lot of other problems. By looking at just one problem, namely the climate change, we have to, and we are forced to think about different approaches that would be useful in solving such issue. I'm going to give you another problem to solve: gender equality. Indonesia is ranked number 85 out of 153 countries surveyed by the World Economic Forum. When you are looking at gender equality, you may not feel it because you don't think it exists, but it exists everywhere in the world, in Indonesia, in your university, in your classroom, your family. We could approach the question of gender using Islamic studies, religious studies, using biology, using science. We are looking at gender inequality in science. We are looking at the different ways in which women's bodies respond to medicine. By thinking about one problem, namely gender inequality, you could approach this problem with so many approaches. And again, I'm inviting you to think about how your discipline could address gender inequality, how your discipline, your major, minor, could talk about gender inequality, and how your Islamic studies background could speak about feminism, gender inequality, gender order, gender construct, on and on and on. My point is that one problem with so many approaches, and that is the work of a transdisciplinary approach. Another bigger problem that I would like to share with you all, my job tonight is just to give you a headache, and then you can think about the solution afterward. We are part of what we call Sustainable Development Goals. It is part of the UN project, and Indonesia is part of it. Of all the countries surveyed in regard to Sustainable Development Goals, there are about I think 160 countries or more surveyed by the UN, and Indonesia ranked at 60. So Indonesia is at 50% of those countries surveyed. When we look at the achievement, we are not there. So the question from me to all of you again: how do you use your knowledge? How do you use your discipline? How do you use your Islamic studies? Any background to analyze, to research the gap between what is going to be achieved in terms of Sustainable Development Goals in Indonesia and the problems that are associated with such achievement. And all of these require thinking, all of these require research, and you are important in solving these problems. You are part of the solution, and the solution that we are bringing has to do with a transdisciplinary approach. Earlier, we have heard distinction between monodiscipline, disciplinary approach, interdisciplinary approach and a transdisciplinary approach. With transdisciplinary approach, we are looking at one problem and we use many approaches to research it, to solve it, and to analyze it. Now I'm going to move on to the second question. The reason why I would like you to think about problems to solve, because that is research. When we do research, when we are trying to come up with new theories, when we are trying to add knowledge, we have to know the problems. And a lot of time, the problems that we need to solve do not always exist within our own discipline, but it can be used by using our discipline. I already have identified a few problems in our eyes: COVID-19, climate change, gender inequality, and what I call unfulfilled sustainable development goals. There are many other problems, including what we just heard, the role of the media in disseminating fake news, for instance. That's also a problem for all of us. Just for the sample, I gave you what I think what we need to do in order to solve all these problems through research. The way I look at all these problems that I've just said, I perceive these problems as the context in which we produce knowledge. These problems are sites where our knowledge of Islam, our Islamic knowledge is going to be produced. The question is how to produce Islamic knowledge using a transdisciplinary approach. I'm going to hypothetically think about one question, and I would like you to think along as I explain to you. Let's say that we are all going to solve COVID-19. It's a big task for the government. It is a big task for scientists. It is a big task for everyone living on Earth, for every breathing human being at this point. We have to solve COVID-19, and each of us could contribute by resourcing to our discipline. In research, in using a transdisciplinary approach, we have a question, we are looking at methods, and then the process of addressing the question, and then we can come up with the outcome later on. In doing so, I would like you to invite you to share your ideas on chat. Explain to us how your discipline address COVID-19. How does your discipline address COVID-19? In what way your discipline could contribute to solving COVID-19? Again, when we use a transdisciplinary approach, we are invited to be creative. We are going beyond the box of our discipline. We are asking questions and we are trying to get answers. So there is no right and wrong answers to my question, but I do hope that you all could contribute and think very, very hard about the relevance of your discipline in solving COVID-19. Here is my question, and then I'll pretend that I'm trying to address this question by using different disciplines. Why is saving life a priority for Muslim communities, for health professionals, governments, and environmentalists during COVID-19? This is the $1 million question, right? I mean, how do we save life? From Islamic studies, what can Islamic studies say? From health studies, what can health studies say? From environmental studies, what can it say? From government, government, I put it government there. Government, how can the government solve COVID-19? As we are told today that when it comes to a transdisciplinary approach, there is not much boundaries, there is no box, everything is so fluid between one discipline and the other. And for us, we are asking also one specific question. Why is saving life very important to Muslim communities, to government, to environmentalists, and to health professionals? That is our question. And think about how Islam would answer this question, how environmentalists would answer this question, how government would answer this question, how health professional would answer this question. Although all these disciplines are in some way separate, they are not connected, but we are trying to find a connection. We are trying to connect the dot between all disciplines so that we could come up with a solid answer, solid analysis of how to solve COVID-19. I'm going to start with small scale just to bring some ideas, just to find out some commonalities between different disciplines in order to arrive at one big point. When I look at, let's say, the connection between health science and Islamic studies, when I look at how Muslim scholars, Muslim leaders, and how health professionals, how both parties attempt to address COVID-19. Now, I'm going to give you just at least two ideas. The relationship between health protocol and Islam, we are looking at how health protocol is interpreted in terms of Islamic belief, ritual, community, and meaning. When we look at Islam at this point after COVID-19, the way we define our belief may change. Our belief in God doesn't change, but our belief in ritual has changed. Before we have to do the prayer together in the congregation, but now we do the prayer in the house. Before we have to do Juma prayer, Friday prayer every Friday in the mosque. Now many communities do the prayer in the house. We also change the way we operate as a community. We have to engage with social distancing, and at the same time, we are trying to put new meaning. We are trying to add new meaning to our activities. We don't feel we are lacking in meaning, although we change the way we implement our belief, ritual, and communal relationship. Why? Because health protocol requires us to redefine Islam, to redefine ritual, to redefine community, and to redefine meaning. The second area that you could look at in regard to the relationship between Islamic studies and healthcare, we are looking at the importance of religious scholars and health professionals in regard to their authorities and the way they debate about health protocol. Both parties, Muslim scholars and health professionals, emphasize on saving life, emphasize on keeping people to be healthy. Of course, if we are using Maqasid Sharia, the goal of Sharia, very likely we argue for saving the preservation of life, the preservation of reason, the family, on and on and on. So Maqasid Sharia could be used to demonstrate the importance of saving life, for instance. Next, I'm gonna show you how government and health science could solve the problem. We are talking about protocols for the public, how we behave in public by social distancing, how the government attempts to support the vaccine innovation, how also the government develop health policies for the people affected by the COVID-19. By looking at the relationship between health science and government, or the way the government governs in regard to the policies for COVID, both of them are very, very important. Why? Because both of them need to prioritize saving life. So now we are narrowing it down into saving life. Governmental policies and health protocols pertain to saving life. Next, we are looking at health science and environmentalism. We are also looking at the policies for the public, lockdown, social distancing, quarantine, business opening, school, university opening or closing, sanitation, and public transportation. All of these are very, very important for our environment and also very, very important for the government. Let's say public transportation becomes very important during COVID-19 because we don't want to add more carbon dioxide to our air. So our transportation system needs to be more efficient. And it has to do with the policies from the government. It has to do with the environmental awareness. When we are looking at the relationship between environmentalism and Islamic studies, it is very, very clear how Islam perceives the environment, how environmentalism contributes also to the study of Islam. There is the discipline Islam and environment. It has started since 1960s. We are also looking at how the COVID-19 was handled and how the quarantine is instituted within the Islamic educational system in pesantren, for instance, in Islamic universities. And also we are looking at the mobility and immobility of Muslim religious teachers and leaders. Why? Because we are all subjected to the new environment. And the environment we are in right now is the environment with COVID-19. So anything about Islam and the teaching of Islam, whether it is in terms of belief, practice, institutions, communities, all of these are shaped by the new environment. By looking at, let's go back to this particular slide. By looking at different disciplines in addressing the COVID-19, by this time, we have found a silver lining. We have found one common sphere that is useful in thinking about saving life. What is it about saving life that is important in Islamic studies? What is it about saving life that is important in environmentalism? What is it about saving life that is important for the government? What is it about saving life that is important for health science? When we are doing research, we have our question should be very, very consistent from the beginning in the process, the beginning of the process and in the middle of the process. And that is exactly what we are doing right now. I believe that one thing is common to all the disciplines that we have just said earlier, namely the concept of public good. And of course, from the legal perspective, you can come up with so many ideas about it, whether it is about the importance of ijtihad, whether it is about the importance of qiyas, anything, or it is the importance of different legal reasoning. But in any case, the concept of public good is common to Islamic studies, to health professional, to the government, and also to the last one we are talking to the environment. So we are essentially talking about public good. The reason why saving life is important, because saving life is a matter of public good. And that is the connecting dot. So our approaches to the question of saving life push us to think very, very hard. We are looking for one common sphere. We are looking for the connecting dot. And eventually, in my research, I come across to the importance of public good, whether it is from the Islamic teaching, from the government perspective, from health professionals, and also from environmentalism. Now, the question is, why do we consider the whole exercise of researching COVID-19 as a reflection of the production of Islamic knowledge? So now I'm going to go back to the first question. What do we mean by Islamic knowledge? When we do an analysis using a transdisciplinary approach, what makes our effort quote unquote Islamic? What makes our knowledge quote unquote Islamic? Now I'm gonna go to the last part of the talk. We're gonna look at defining Islamic knowledge. Here is what I'm asking you to think about. Can we categorize or classify the process of approaching the COVID-19 from a transdisciplinary approach as Islamic? In other words, do we produce the Islamic knowledge? What do we mean by Islamic knowledge? According to Ahmed, this is from the book that I really like. The title is What is Islam? According to Ahmed, when it comes to asking the question, what is Islam? What is Islamic? We are in agreement that Islam in this discussion is defined in terms of a discursive tradition. Islam as discursive tradition means prescription. Islam as a discursive tradition could also mean the prescription of correctness. Why? Because a lot of time we are thinking about what is Islamic in terms of orthodoxy, correct doctrine, in terms of orthopraxy, correct practice. So we are looking at the Quran and the Hadith carry the authority, but this authority has to do with correct doctrine, the prescription of correctness. The question is, when we are doing the production of knowledge and we think that this knowledge is Islamic, the question according to Ahmed, what makes Islam? Does Islam mix Muslim? Do Muslims make Islam? Which one come first? It's like chicken egg question. Does chicken come first? Does do chicken come first, or does egg come first? Does Islam make Muslims, or do Muslims make Islam? This question becomes very, very important because knowledge in Islam is connected to authority. The production of knowledge correlate to the production of authority. For that very reason, Islam from time to time becomes a discursive tradition. This is the two final points that I'm going to talk about. Muslim makes meaning. What does it mean? It means that insofar as we are talking about Islamic knowledge, it has to do with how Muslims put meaning to it. Only Muslims could say something is Islamic, or knowledge is Islamic. Why? Because Islam is what means and meaning. Islam is located in the process of producing knowledge. Islam is located in the outcome of knowledge production as well. For that very reason, only Muslim could say that the knowledge is Islamic, or only Muslim could claim Islamic knowledge, because Muslims put meaning to it. In conclusion, what do we mean by Islamic knowledge? In my reading for this talk, I come across to Islam in terms of the discursive tradition. Islamic knowledge is what is rooted in the tradition of Islam, the Quran, the Hadith, and the whole interpretation of Islam. Secondly, Islamic knowledge has to do with what is being called Islamic by Muslims, and that is the second category that I'm trying to propose tonight. It has to do also with the interpretation of Islam in a broader sense. Not very narrow, not about authority as mentioned earlier, but it is Islam in a very broader broader sense. Islamic knowledge also includes the Islamic framework of text, context, and meaning, not just text, not just the Quran, not just the Hadith, but also context in which we are deriving knowledge, and also the meaning associated with the knowledge production. Islamic knowledge may affirm or reaffirm orthodoxy or orthopraxy. At the same time, Islamic knowledge opens a new possibility in terms of explorative authority. And last but not the least, Islamic knowledge is inclusive of natural, textual, and technological phenomena. We don't really think about the technological phenomenon in terms of Islamic knowledge, but Islamic knowledge is inclusive of everything that Allah has created. In other words, Islamic knowledge is inclusive of all knowledge, insofar as Muslim calls it Islamic. So I want to end with the note that I hope all of you have already have already thought about your own research and how you are going to approach it using a transdisciplinary approach. Even if you are a student, first year, second year, third year, fourth year student, first year student at the college, at the university could start thinking about the thesis 2 years from now. Students who are writing thesis could revisit the importance of a transdisciplinary approach to solve the problem, to do research. Thank you very much. I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much for the really meaningful presentation, Prof. So I'm sure all the participants will get a lot of new insight about the transdisciplinary, especially about the Islamic knowledge. But before we go further to the question and answer session, we will have another 20 minutes presentation from our third presenter. So our third presenter is Professor Dr. Gamal Abdul Nasir. So he's here with us now. He's coming from the Sultan Hassanul Bolkiah Institute of Education, University Brunei Darussalam. And then he is the senior assistant professor in University of Brunei Darussalam. He finished his PhD in National University Malaysia. And then he is interested in Islamic education, history and philosophy of Islamic education, innovation and development of Islamic education, and also critical analysis in Islamic education. So if you do have like the same interest, then you may contact him. So without spending too much on this, I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Gamal Abdul Nasir to have his presentation. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay. Can I start now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Please help me to to do the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Host.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Thank you very much for the chair, and also thank you very much to the IAIN Kendari for inviting me to share some thought of thinking culture, and especially in teacher education and learning. And also, I would like to say hi and assalamualaikum to my colleagues, Professor Andi Faisal Bakti. We were together at the Semarang, at the IAI Semarang at 90s. And also the last speaker just now, Professor Etin. So, okay, now my Yeah, because that my paper is about the thinking culture, teacher, education, analysis. So my topic is more specific, more focused, and compared to the others presentation. Okay, next. Yeah. So I would like to begin my presentation with we look at the quotation. Actually, I was surprisingly that this quotation is not from the Muslim, but is from the wife of the Lincoln, Linda Lincoln, the president, former president of United States of America. But I think this is very important, and we have to understand now which level or what level we are. So there are 4 levels of our mind, our thinking. First, the highest one is great minds discuss ideas. The second one, average minds discuss events, and small people minds about this my small mind discuss about people, and very small mind discuss about themselves. The highest one, but the level of the degree of our minds can be changed, highest or the lowest. The great ideas, the great mind is discussed about ideas. So the people who has the great mind talking about the ideas, about the philosophy, about the ideas, and about the futuristic, and about the second one, about the average man, discuss about event. So I would like to give an example. The average man discuss, because you know the example of the average man discuss about the event. For the example, so when the something happen, so when the something happen, we we start to discuss. We have to discuss, but we have not anticipate what actually will happen in the future. So this is very average. Discuss about the event. For example, now about the COVID-19. About the COVID-19, we are talking everywhere. Everyone talking or discuss about the event. What happening now in the world. So meaning we are not anticipating about the COVID-19. So we only react, we make a reaction or react, not do the anticipate about this. Maybe another example, for example, in education, for example, when the university, the quality of the university, the quality of university is lower, is not achieved. So the people said, oh, what happened now? The education in Indonesia is not, the quality in education, especially in university, is very low or lower. So the people, the scholar discuss about that. So meaning we have average event. And the small mind discuss about people. Now we are talking, we are discussing, and every day and gossiping, about the people. Or for example, we are talking about our deen, we are talking about our friend, we are talking about everything. So about so meaning we have small mind. And the last one is very small mind discuss about themselves. This is very dangerous. This very small mind discuss about themselves. Yes, just to to perform, to introduce. Only he is or he always or she always talking about him or herself. Yeah, I have this one, I have this one, I do this, I do this. So meaning this is the people or someone who has the small, very small minds. So there is, so we have to consider, and we look at this quotation of the to see something to ponder. Okay, next. Next one. Yeah. So yeah, I tried to make objective my presentation. There are two objectives of my presentation. First, to streamline our understanding about thinking culture from Islamic and Western perspective. This is very important, especially at the university level. At the university level, so to understand about the thinking culture, we actually we have to start. The thinking culture is from the primary and the secondary school, and we continue until at the university level. And the second one, this is to share what our strategy, how to strategize, and technique we use, to create or maybe imbibe thinking culture to our student, to our mahasiswa. This is very important. Okay. Next. Yeah. There are two terminologies related or pertaining about the thinking culture. Which one is correct? But it is thinking culture or culture of thinking. So this is two terminologies we have to to know and to understand. So thinking culture is human social behavior, so which attaches importance and impetus to development and use of a part of their regular and day-to-day activities. Meaning that as human behavior, human social behavior, humankind, as the insan, as the manusia, this is very important to us to have the thinking culture or culture thinking to develop our regular life daily life or daily our activities. So meaning everything what we do in our life, daily life, and our activities and our life, especially for the students, for the lecturer, for the intellectual, have to attach with the thinking culture or culture thinking. Okay, next. Okay, now constructive intellectual or constructive. Yeah, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala give us akal, give us mind, give us intellectual, but our intellectual, our mind must be guided. We cannot the intellectual, the intellect, the mind, it cannot freely, but must be guided. So that's why not an intellect who is astray. And the second one, intellect who respect and humble, not an arrogant one. Meaning, the people who has intellect at the mind. So we can see that people or that man or that people will respect and humble, not arrogant. So meaning if someone has the intellectual or the intellect or mind, he respect. In Islam we call that hormat, and ihtiram wa takrim, and very humble, mutawadi. Meaning the someone or the people who not respect and humble and arrogant to the others, to the people, meaning he has no intellectual, he has no mind. And the last one is intellectual and intellectual. Intellectual, the people who has intellectual, they solve the problem rather than adding more it. So if you make it more problem, or you created the problem, meaning you has no intellect, who has no mind. So the intellect is, we call that the problem solver. Okay. So from the previous explanation, thinking culture is said to exist. So the thinking culture actually exists in our body, in our, in the place where group ideas as well individual thinking is valued, visible, and actively promoted a part of the regular day-to-day experience of group members. The meaning of this from the Rod Richard, that the thinking culture is whether individually or in groups, the idea will be valued or respected and visible. We can see, we know that, and the thinking culture actively promoted, promote the about the active, and where in our daily experience and our daily life, whether individually or group members, we always, promote the value, the visible, then and also the visible in individually or personally or in group. This is very important. Okay. Now we look into the implication. What is the impact, the implication of the critical thinking? For thinking culture to exist and place or group, each and every member of the group must implement thinking culture. So for the the culture is exists in the individually in a group, but everyone or every member or individual or the group must implement thinking culture. Thinking culture. And they must create opportunities for individuals' intellectual development. Why? Why we have to create opportunities? Meaning everybody, individually or in a group, has opportunity to create, to create intellectual development. So we give freedom, we give them equality or equity to everyone to create opportunities, meaning everyone has opportunity, the same opportunity, the chances to everyone. So not only to the leader, not only to the, the prominent one, but everyone has chance to create, the intellectual development. So meaning in one group, the development of intellectual is together, together. Not there is no higher and lower, not like that. So we are going, we're going together. So because what? Because we have the same opportunity and chance. Okay, and this is also very important. They must allow individually, especially in the group, must allow intellectual to grow through transparency and openness. Meaning, everyone in the group, to grow, we have to transparency and openness. Transparent, nothing to hide, nothing to hide. We speak, we speak frankly. What we speak what is as exists, and openness. Openness meaning we are open to accept the other opinion or critics from the members, especially from the members of the groups, or maybe from the outside of the group. So this is, the implication is, if we want to make a thinking culture is implemented and it happened, the first was we must implement this culture, and we create opportunities to everyone, to the individual, intellectual development, and we have to transparency and openness. We accept any opinion, suggestion, even the critic. So we open the dialogue. Okay, next. Now, they must allow the use intellect as one of the instruments for solving problem that might arise from day-to-day activities. So the instrument, so we have to have the instrument to the solving the problem, because previously I said that the intellectual must be, can solve the problem, not make it the problem or the create the problem. And they must celebrate intellectual growth, meaning what they must celebrate. Celebrate meaning you have to, welcome. You are welcome, and then you participate to intellectual growth, and also they must give room to communicate intellectual growth. This is the very important thing. This is a room. This is to communicate, because sometimes the problem come up the problem because there is no communication. Communication is blocked. So if the communication is not fluently, so meaning the what we call the culture thinking will be not existing. So this is very important. We have to openness, and also we have to communicate, to communicate with the others, especially in our group, especially in context university. We have to, communicate to the with the students and also the colleges in the faculty on our university. How long I have time?
You still have around 10 minutes, sir.
How long? 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Okay. Now, what is the thinking culture in Islam? Yeah, some misinformed people, the Islam perhaps the religion that promote thinking culture most. This is evident in the following. So we have to, to spread, to tell the people that Islam not only about the worship, about the akhlaq, but also Islam, promote the thinking culture about the thinking, because Islam, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala equip us, give us the most value gifts from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. This is the akal, the intellectual, and the minds. So that's why Islam put the mind and the intellectual in the highest place, behind the wahyu, behind the reveal, the wahyu from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, followed by the akal. Next. So I think there are so many, when we look at the Quran, the Quranic verses, when we study about so many verses, so many ayah, talking about the mind, about the intellectual, about the akal, so many things. This is one of in the surah Sad, verse 29, chapter Sad. So this is a book, the Quran, which we have sent down to you, full of blessing, that they may ponder over its verses, and that men of understanding may remember. So liyadabbaru ayatihi wa liyatadhakkara ulul albab. So this is the word, is the emphasis liyadabbaru. Liyadabbaru meaning that may ponder what is verses, and that mean waliyatazakkaru ulul albab, to understand the men of understanding. Ulul albab translated that men of understanding. Okay, next. Okay, so many you I think you can refer to the ayah. Okay, next. Next. Yeah, this is also there in Surah Ali Imran. Okay, next. We understand. I believe we understand already. We know that about these verses. Now, on this also, this is the conclusion. I mean, the or the summary. Few terminologies used by the Quran describe about the thinking. So I quoted from the Jamal Badi and Mustafa Tajuddin and his book about the critical thinking. He listed down the few terminology about the thinking. First, about tafakkur, meaning thinking. We call it ta'akul, yatafakkarun, ta'akul, ya'kilun, intellection, and tafakuh, comprehension, yafqahun, tadabur, yatadabarun, pondering and deep thinking, tadhakur, commitment to memory, and nazar, afala yanzuruna, so consideration, and tawassum, reflection, and also i'tibar, the deriving lesson. This and the Jum'ah, fa'tabiru ya ulil absar, yani fa'tabiru min i'tibar, deriving lesson. This is I think, and I'm sure the participants, all of us know about the, describe the thinking in the Quran, like Jamal Badi list down. Okay, next. Okay, now focus to the in teacher education parlance. Thinking culture exists when teaching and learning process is geared towards intellectual development, not for mere facing exam.